is Labor Day. So if I hope somebody joins us, but if not, it's okay. And this week's assignment, it's pretty simple. Week 3, keyword this week is Labor Day. We have a midterm survey, so hopefully you'll give me a nice report, but it's up to you. Hopefully I'm helping you. And you're a junior analyst, and they want you to give a report on transaction costs. So let's look at this together. Okay. Let me set this up for you. Just give it a minute. Keyword, it's Labor Day. So I'm going to give you guidance now. And you're going to use my guidance to write your paper. Plus, I'm going to memorialize this in the YouTube. I will put this in the YouTube. So first thing I'm going to do, no, so I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, let me open up my, let me show you what I'm doing, so you know what I'm doing. I'm going to go to our class, open it up, and I'm going to put down week 3 assignment example. Use as a copy. Here it is. So first I'm just going to put it in there so you have it. I'll make sure you have it. Okay, so that's example. Now I'm going to go to content. Labor Day is the key word, remember that. And I'm going to go to our assignment. And we're going to create new, a page. I'm going to put that here also. All here for you. I want to. You could find it when you're looking in your content. You should be able to find it when you open it right here. Okay. Third, go to this list. Now you got an email. I'm going to email it. And then go. Now you have it. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 minute. from different angles. And let's look at the example itself. So for this assignment, the most important point is that there is no single correct no, wrong. Sorry. It's close. Here we go. For this assignment, the key is to analyze the risks rather than simply define them. The paper should read as a brief to senior leadership, explain the problem, show why it matters to financial institutions, and give a real-world example. Your introduction can establish that financial institutions operate in an environment where information problems, transaction costs, changing interest rates, inflation regulation will affect the availability and price of credit. A strong thesis might argue that financial stability depends on institutions successfully managing information asymmetry. So the first thing you want to think about is transaction costs, the expenses associated for information. The important analytical point is that higher transaction costs make the markets less efficient. So if you have to pay interest rates, fees, spreads, that makes everything more expensive and makes the markets less efficient. So think about it like when you go to buy gas. When they gasoline at the gas station, when the government charges you more and more taxes, they're charging you fees. When they charge you these fees, chances are you're going to overall macro, you're going to want to buy less. You're going to want to buy less gasoline. It only makes sense, right? It only makes sense that you'd want to buy less gasoline because you're paying more money. So anytime you put a lot of fees on anything, you're going to want to, you're not going to want to spend, you're going to buy less. And when you buy less and people buy less, you get less efficiency. Because remember, what do we want in the markets? We want to exactly see what the right price is. When less people enter and trade, I think then you don't get the exact price that you need, and that starts to obfuscate what the thing is really worth. To get a true value on a stock or on any investment, you want as many potential players as possible, many opinions as possible with their money. Adverse selection is both sides don't have the same information. So borrowers who know they have greater financial risk might be interested in obtaining credit. If a bank cannot distinguish between high and low risk borrowers because they don't know they're lending to people, think about what happens in the real world. They're lending to people, they're not sure if they can pay their bills. What winds up happening is they get something called adverse selection. And with adverse selection, they're going to charge more. That's why you pay 18, 19% sometimes, because they can't slice and dice every lender, right? And so they do it with income verification, credit scores. But the bottom line, if they don't have the information, it's like when you go buy a used car. If you buy a brand new car, right? If you buy a brand new car, well, then what's going to happen? You have all those assurances. You have guarantees. You have warranties. So you want to pay a little more. You don't worry. But if you buy a used car, you're worried. So you pay less. And that's what adverse selection does. The moral hazard is when people do things and they change the way they do things because the other side gets the risk. So even though a borrower say that it's going into bankruptcy and knows they're going into bankruptcy, or that knows that they could borrow money and just fold their business. Think about this is really like a moral hazard. We saw a lot of real estate people take on loans in a risky market knowing that they put it in a separate partnership, and if the partnership doesn't work, they just fold the partnership. Well, they've taken advantage of the markets because they could walk away from it and just claim a bankruptcy, and the markets bear the risk. Now, regulatory and fiscal policy can help address some of these things, but ultimately, that has to be discussed in the paper. How government spending and taxation influences demand. Remember, we have free markets in this country. The markets are free. However, even though the markets are free, the government does get involved through taxes. So we want to see the government getting involved in taxes. They will change the way people behave. So, for instance, think about liquor or cigarettes. even though there are people out there, which I don't think it's either is a good idea, people will smoke and drink. When the government imposes higher taxes on these things, they may smoke and drink a little less because they don't want to pay those taxes. That's the government using taxes, gasoline taxes. People using smaller cars because they don't want to promote gas guzzling cars. Then ultimately, we want to talk about inflation, which we've been experiencing. Higher prices mean that if you're not keeping up, if your income is not keeping up with prices, essentially a dollar is shrinking. So when gasoline, as another example, goes from $2 to $4, your dollar when you go to gas tank literally went in half. So I give you all of this guidance, and then you're going to give me the introduction, and here's my guidance for a strong paper with references. So hopefully that helps you get this thing done. Let's take a look at moral hazard for a minute. Hey, Mike. Thank you, minute. Hold on one second. I need some choice. Sure. Good.
Moral hazard. Economist Paul Krugman defines a moral hazard as any situation in which one person makes the decision about how much risk to take, while someone else bears the cost if things go badly. For example, homeowners and companies who buy fire insurance policies for their homes and office buildings may not be as careful to avoid fires as they were before they bought the policies. Economists use the term moral hazard primarily to denote market inefficiencies and misaligned incentives. But, as the term suggests, it also has moral implications. For example, if managers of a company believe the government will bail their firm out if it runs into financial disaster, they are more likely to take unwise risks in pursuit of outsized financial rewards. Such a risk-seeking decision is arguably immoral because it transfers any potential loss to innocent people, taxpayers in this case. Similarly, some experts contend that BP chose to drill the risky Deepwater Horizon well in part because its liability for economic damages from a potential spill was capped at $75 million by the 1990 Oil Pollution Act. But in this case, the loss was borne by more than just innocent people. Wildlife, the Gulf's environment, and the fishing industry suffered too. And studies show that people with health insurance, especially those with little or no deductible, are more likely to request unnecessary medical care than uninsured persons. Some people use moral hazard to justify denying public and private benefits to the sick, the injured, and the poor. They reason that when people receive benefits but bear no risk, this may cause them to act irresponsibly. However, philosophers and others find these arguments morally suspect, instead believing that all people in need should be helped when feasible.
Okay, so that's basically it. That's basically it. That's what moral hazard is. Let's take a look at this selection. Wait a minute. Okay. And finally, what about inflation? Let's take a look at the markets. I love looking at the markets. I think I push it very hard because I want the student kind of always keep an eye on the markets. Okay? Let's take a look at the markets. We have NVIDIA, and that's reported better earnings. All right. Let's look at the stock market. Let's see what's happening in the stock market. I want you to keep following the markets. Let's look at the markets. Now, okay, so NVIDIA reported really good earnings, and that's really helped. So that's the Labor Day look. Labor Day is your key word. But that about wraps it up. I mean, I know it's a short class, but what I wanted to do was make sure you got your assignment. I will reduce this to a, make sure it's on a YouTube. I wish more people would show up, but maybe we'll see each other next week. And thank you for attending.